Hey guys, CobDev here, and today we are going to be learning how to make a sprint system with display in Unreal Engine 4. As you can see, I just opened a new project, third person, and let's jump right into it. So first thing we're going to do is let's jump into the third person character. If you watch my last video, you know I like to delete the gamepad input and touch input and all that just because I'm never going to use it, at least not for my tutorials. So first thing we gotta do is let's create our variables. I'm gonna get rid of these because I'm not gonna be using them, just to make things a little cleaner. So first variable we're gonna need is stamina. And let's make this a float. Second one is stamina decrease rate. Okay, and that'll also be a float. Walk speed, and let's go sprint speed. Sprint speed, and one more is running, and this one will be a boolean. And let's make walk speed and sprint speed editable. Now let's compile and set values to these. So stamina, this is essentially just the percentage of stamina that you're gonna have. So let's just make it 100 so it's easy to work with. Stamina decrease rate, this is how fast it's going to decrease when you're running. I just found a value that works for me really well is 0.5, and obviously you can do whatever you want. That's just one I like. Walk speed, same thing. Values I like is for walking 600 units and sprinting 1,000. It's a little fast for sprinting, but I don't know. I kind of like it like that. So feel free to make them whatever you want. And is running is going to stay false. So before we jump in, let's go to our project settings. Let's load up. I did not expect that to be full screen. Input, and in action mappings, I'm going to get rid of the VR one. We're going to add sprint. And the button for that will be left shift. Left, where is it? Left shift, here it is. All right, and we can close that, and that's all we have to do. So first off, we got to add the node input sprint. It's the action we just made. And for pressed, so there's a few things we want to check for before your character starts sprinting. And the first thing is let's get the character movement, and let's check is moving on ground. We don't want your stamina to be able to decrease while you're in the air, because that's just kind of not fair, because you're not running. And with this is moving on ground, we're going to make a branch. Let's bring this over, because we're going to have to use that released as well. So, and then, okay, in true, we also have to check for get velocity and vector length. And then vector length has to be greater than float 0. And the reason we do this is because if not, if you were to just stand still and then hold down the shift button, your stamina would start to go down, even though you wouldn't be sprinting. So this is just to make sure that you actually are moving, that you are sprinting. And for both of these, we don't have to do anything for the false. Alright, and next is we have to actually check if you have stamina. So let's get one more branch, get the stamina here, get stamina, and this has to be greater than 0. Simple as that, plug it in. Alright, so it just checks for all those things to make sure you can actually sprint. So what we want to do first is set is running. It's the variable we made, and for true we want yes, you are running. And then after that we want to set walk speed. Wait, first we have to get our character movement. Set walk speed No, set max walk speed. That's what I was doing wrong. Set max walk speed. There it is. You could just enter it manually here, but the reason I had us make these variables is because they're going to be entered a few times in the code, and I made them editable so that if you wanted to change around the values, you would only have to do it once instead of going through each and every one and changing it. It just makes it a little easier. Alright, so for false, we want to set is running to false, and we can just Control C, Control V, and then this time though we want to put in the walk speed because you're back to walking. All right, so I think that's all we have to do right there. So now let's get our event tick. So this will fire every frame of the game, and first we want to check if they're running. So are they running? I don't know. Let's find out. Alright, so true. We want a delay, and the delay will be the stamina decrease rate. So this is for decreasing our stamina as we're running so that we can't run infinitely. If you want to run infinitely, you can just skip the whole part with the stamina decrease, but to make it a little more realistic, I like to put in the decrease. So we have, yes, we have the delay, and then after the delay, we want to actually start lowering the stamina. So let's set stamina, and then we also have to get stamina, and then we got to go float minus float, and then stamina -1. Perfect. And then I think it's important to put a clamp here in between to make sure it doesn't go below 0 and it doesn't go above 100, because if it goes into the negatives or above the maximum, things can get really buggy, and that's not what we want. Not necessarily buggy, but this will make it a lot cleaner. Alright, so after we actually start lowering the stamina, we want to check if the stamina is less than or equal to 0. Since it's a float, we'll also make it equal to 0. And it shouldn't go less than 0, but just in case, it's always because you could just make it equals to 0 because we clamped it at the minimum for 0. But this is just in case it ever goes below 0. It's just it's a better technique. All right, so if stamina, and then okay, so now we want to set is running to false, because obviously we don't want to run anymore once our stamina hits 0, and then we have to set our walk speed to walk speed, so we can actually just take it from right there. Alrighty. Okay. Now let's go back to this first branch right here, is running. And if the is running is false, so if we're not running, and our stamina is at 0, then we're gonna have a little delay before it starts going back up. So if you use all your stamina up and it goes all the way down to 0, we are going to have kind of a 5-second delay, as if you're catching your breath before your stamina starts actually increasing again. I'm sorry. So now that we have that, we want to get a delay, and the delay, let's just make it 5 seconds. Okay, and after that, we get another delay, and then this one's for the actual increase because we want to get the stamina decrease rate. You can make another variable for stamina increase rate if you want them to be different, but I prefer them to be the same, so I just use it for both. And then for false, because if it's not equal to 0, we want to go just straight to this delay. And let's put a couple reroute nodes so it doesn't get confusing, because we don't want to wait 5 seconds as if you're catching your breath. It'll just go straight to increasing again. All right, and then all we have to do after that is start adding the stamina again. So we want to set stamina, get stamina, and this is +1, or the float plus float, and then +1. And let's remember to put the clamp in again so it doesn't go above 100. Clamp float. Perfect, perfect. And 100. Now, let's make begin play real quick. This step isn't necessarily necessary, but I do like it just to be safe. I always put a sequence for begin play just in case there's other things that keeps it a little more organized. So we just want to set the walk speed to your regular walk speed, so you don't like start out sprinting, because that can just get confusing. So not that walk speed. So like I said, it's totally not necessary, but it's just something I like to do. Perfect. So now our sprinting system is all fixed up. And if we want to test it before we add the display, we can put a sequence for this right here. It's getting crowded. And then every tick, we can print string, and then we can print our stamina. And this will just be a little bit of debugging to make sure it works. How about we do that before we start on the actual display? So right now, we're not moving. Pressing shift, it's not decreasing. I start sprinting, and it's starting to go down, which is great. And then I stop sprinting, I'm going a little slower. If you want to see it more drastically, just to make sure it's working, sometimes I like to do is set this to something a little more crazy, like 5,000, and set the stamina decrease rate to like 0.05, just to make sure everything's working. So this is my normal running where I'm not using sprint, and then this is my sprint. As you can see, I'm going much faster, and it's going down, and when it gets to 0, as you can see, it's going normal again, and it waits 5 seconds, and then and then it starts filling up again. And if you sprint and it goes down, and then you release, it just starts going back up immediately. All right, so that all works. And last thing we want to do. All right, so we're going to go back to the input action sprint and make sure we put in the released. So we can just go over here to where we did this, and we can just copy and paste is running walk speed, and then paste, and that's all you're going to need for released. So when you release left shift, you just go back to your regular walk speed. Actually, stay here. Let's just actually put something on the screen that isn't some debugging. So let's right click user interface widget blueprint, and we'll just call it HUD, and you can open that up. Let's add a progress bar. Let's just kind of put it in the center here. Negative 100, sure. 20 isn't necessary. I just like it to make it look nicer. Which is something you'll learn if you start watching my videos. All right, so this is just the progress bar. I just positioned it at the bottom, made it a little longer. Fill color, that doesn't matter. Percent, let's just make sure it's all good. Right, so we want 0.75. There we go. Yep. All right, so it all works. So for the percent, we have to bind this. Sorry. So we go to percent. We click on this little thing where it says bind, and we'll press create binding. I just did that. And then we want to cast to third person character. Get player character. Get stamina, and then we want, before we attach it, we want to divide float divided by float divided by 100, so that we get a proper percentage, and enter it in there. And then let's go back to the third person character and then begin play. Told you the sequence would be useful. Let's go ahead and create widget so it actually shows up on our screen. HUD and add to viewport. All right, compile, save, and there it is. It's full. Actually, before we do it, let's take off this print. Let's take this off. Print string. So, okay. All right, so it's all the bottom there. We're running normally. It's fine. We start sprinting, and it starts to go down. We let it go all the way down, and it should stay for 5 seconds. 2, 3, 4, 5. Yep, it starts going back up. Let me sprint again. Perfect. All right, and that seems to be everything. If you're in the air, it doesn't go down. See, I'm jumping, holding down the sprint button, as you can not see, obviously, but it doesn't work when you're in the air, and it doesn't work when you're standing still. So if you have any questions, please comment below, and thank you for watching.